Okay, so now let's take a look at the browser really quickly. Okay, so we have a simple scene here with a few polygons and a couple of closed lines. And let's first look at grouping. Like if we select elements to move them all at once, we can go to part, alt-click on the part, and it basically puts them in a group, right? So now we can move them all around with just one click. With closed lines, we can do the same. We can use the part, or we can use curved surfaces. But let's put them in the part first. And this will group them just the same. But if we use curved surface, you can see what happens, right? It groups them, but it starts modeling at the same time, because this is designed specifically for curves. And you can see the highlight, this yellow frame, right? That whichever part we hover above, it sort of highlights it. It shows you this hierarchy. And here above it, we have a number of options. We have attributes where we can bake ambient occlusion, where we can set the material for renderman if we use such plugin, where we can set tune settings for rendering, or for example use the physics settings if we're creating such scenes. And we also have booleans here, which basically are booleans visible only during the render. So if we go to modify, then we have actual booleans here, while these are visible only during the render time. So it's kind of like a preview. It doesn't really modify your geometry, right? So you can see here, if we, let's say, use this sphere, right now we have a sphere and we have our cube. If we put an asterisk in front of the sphere, it basically cuts through it, right? This is this most common Boolean function, I think, which essentially cuts through the geometry, right? But it's only doing it during the rendering. You can see it doesn't actually modify our geometry. So this is pretty good for preview if you want to test some booleans, or if you have problems with the actual booleans, which are a bit tricky in any software. And sometimes they work, sometimes they don't. Sometimes if you try to use a boolean, your whole geometry just disappears. So with these, it's very useful because it works every time, basically. There is no problem. So if you have problems with the actual booleans, you can just use this preview at the render time, and this one pretty much works every time. So this is really useful, either for just a preview or for the final render. Okay, so we have all possible booleans up here. And we can also use the find function. If your scene is very complex, you can use it to find certain elements, certain meshes or lights or whatever, right? And they will be displayed right here. Or you can also use it for batch renaming. If you want to change the names, for example, you can choose the select all, and now we can change the polygon to, let's say, POL, and click replace, and it's going to replace the names, right? So it's like a batch rename function. Okay, so that is pretty much all regarding these basics here. Now you can also extend this window, and here you have some additional icons. If you right mouse click, you can display a lot more, right? You can see right here, you can click show all, and it will show you everything that you can have here. A lot of this regarding rendering and animation. Now, I don't usually use any of those. I just use it for modeling and rendering mostly. But you have them. Right here you have the preview of what it is if you hover your mouse around above it. Right. One thing you may use, and is pretty useful, is this first field here where you can lock your mesh. Right. So if you lock it, then you can see you can't select it. I mean, you can select it, but you can't modify it, right? So this one, we can do whatever we want. Here, it will select it, but it doesn't allow us to do anything with it unless we take it off. Okay, so that's pretty much it as far as our browser is concerned.